Good evening. Welcome to the 2026 election hustings for the St Clement Deputies. I'm Cathy Keir and I'm taking us through the proceedings this evening. We have until 9 o'clock, so I hope you have plenty of questions ready for the candidates. Before we start, a bit of housekeeping. Can you please make sure your phones are on airplane mode because messages can interfere with the tech? We're not expecting a fire alarm this evening, so if one does go off, head gently and quietly to the exits. This event's being live streamed on YouTube on the Vote.je account. So for those joining us online, welcome. You can access live caption by pressing the button at the bottom of the screen. And then the recording will be on YouTube for anyone who couldn't make it this evening. So your candidates for the 3 deputy seats are, from this side, Noah Jervis, Reform Jersey, Karen Wilson, Independent, Lindsay Ash, Independent, Joanne van der Merwe, Maan, Independent, Barbara Ward, Independent, Mick Robbins, Reform Jersey, and Alex Curtis, Independent. Tonight, the candidates have agreed that they'll each make an opening speech lasting up to 5 minutes, and then they'll each have a minute to answer all your questions. Well, each of your questions, not all your questions. So they'll take it in turns to be the first to answer the question. So let's kick off with the speeches, starting up this end.
Thank you for coming out this evening. I'm Noah Jervis. I'm a young person who's grown up, been educated, and started my career on this island that I love. My background's in customer experience and supporting small businesses, and I want to use that experience to work for you, the people of St Clement's, to live the best outcomes for our parish. I'm a proud St Clement's parishioner. I'm proud to have grown up in a kind and neighbourly community, and I'm proud of our island's financial and cultural successes. That's why I feel let down when our island's been neglected, the people who've worked so hard to ensure that success. Families, working people, young people, pensioners, the backbones of our community. Are they being priced out, left behind, and driven away? My motivation for standing to be your deputy is to be a force for the much-needed positive change within our parish. If elected, I will champion the voices of St Clement's parishioners inside and outside the Assembly. I will work towards a better deal for working people with a focus on affordability and community. And I will hold our government to account to ensure accountability and the best value for the taxpayer. The unsustainable status quo will not set Jersey up for success in the coming years. We need to focus on retraining talent, retaining talent, upskilling our workforce, and making our community a great place to live for everyone. Recognising the issues is no longer enough. We need to take practical support for lower and middle earners who've been squeezed for too long and tackle the poverty within our parish. I will support a living wage, so no one working full-time should be facing poverty. I will support removing GST off food, as it's a regressive tax disproportionately affecting people of the least. And I support a fair and simplified tax system that will lower the rate for middle earners and allow us to reinstate an enhanced allowance for pensioners. I also feel that for too long, the voices of our youngest parishioners have not been fully embraced. They are the future of St Clement and deserve the best opportunities in education, work and leisure. We should allow people of all ages the opportunity to attain qualifications on this island for apprenticeships, especially in the emerging digital and green economies. This will make our economy resilient to growing economic challenges. I'll support the delivery of a new youth centre at Liscay and seek to make sure an alternative spaces are available while the new site is being developed. I want people of all ages to engage in our culture, arts and heritage. From a young age, making music, art, language and history accessible today will create a more vibrant Jersey tomorrow. To protect the future of our parish, we need to protect our natural environment. Green spaces are at a premium in St Clement, and we can't afford to lose any more. I'm incredibly supportive of any more green spaces that come into community hands, so it can be enjoyed and used by everyone. Aside from creating a happy island, I want a healthier one too. Sport should be recognised as playing a key role in preventative health. We also need to work with sports clubs and organisations to make sure they have the facilities they need to continue the great sporting pedigree of this island. We also need to foster lifelong habits by promoting active travel. Incorporating safe and usable routes for bike and foot will be a key part of much-needed unified transport strategy. They'll keep people fit and take cars off our roads. And we can't talk of health without talking about the hospital. Ireland has been failed, not just the huge cost and long delays, but the ripple effects that it's caused across health. We need to build what has been agreed and refocus on delivering the best care for Islanders. I hope this speech has helped outline my vision for Better Island, for now and for the future. Reform Jersey have made huge strides, including delivering affordable housing, expanding free childcare, and making GP visits free or more affordable for children, students, and many pensioners. As a team, we can achieve so much more on this island in the next 4 years and long into the future. On June 7th, we can turn the tide. Please vote for me and my excellent teammate and colleague, Mick Robbins, so we can enact this future together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noah. Now, Karen Wilson.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Karen, and I'm standing for re-election as your deputy. I'm a nurse by profession. I've led major health organisations, shaped national health policy, and managed large services supporting people with mental health and learning disabilities. I've also served as your health minister, and at that time reopened Samaray Ward and drove some improvements in care. Since returning to the backbenchers, I've held government to account on the hospital, the ferry contract, the COVID response and public spending, while continuing to represent you in the Assembly and here in the parish. But what matters most is this: I live here, this is my community, and I see what you see. I've seen families living in housing that just isn't good enough. I've spoken to young people who don't believe they can afford to stay here. I've seen antisocial behaviour go unchecked while agencies pass responsibility. I've seen people lose hours every week sitting in traffic. And as a nurse, I've seen older residents struggle with systems that simply don't work for them. Some candidates will tell you that things are improving, and I don't accept that. Because if you live in St Clement, you don't experience gradual improvement. You experience the reality of decisions that haven't delivered. Others will manage the situation, and I'm standing again to change it. My focus is a fair deal for St Clement, where every resident feels supported, listened to, and properly served. And I've got 5 priorities that I want to focus on. First, better housing. I've been into homes in our parish. I've seen mould, overcrowding, poor maintenance, which just is not acceptable. And I'm going to push for stronger accountability from Andium, higher maintenance standards, and housing that actually meets local needs, not just targets on a spreadsheet. Secondly, regarding community and youth facilities, as you know, I have led the fight to secure funding for Lusquet, and I will not stop until it is built. Because if we don't provide or invest for young people, we're going to risk losing the heart of this community. Thirdly, supporting families and tackling antisocial behaviour. Through the community development group I set up, we're bringing together police, youth services, housing and local organisations to deal with real issues properly. Not passing the buck around, but fixing it. Fourthly, I want to provide better support for people in later life. We need more community-based healthcare, nurse-led services, better access and support for carers. Helping people stay independent at home isn't just better care, it is actually the right thing to do. And fifthly, with regard to infrastructure and environment, we're on the coastline and the front line of coastal risk. And as I experienced it firsthand on the night of Storm Ciarán, when I was involved with the Connaught and I in organising our emergency response. We need proper investment in our sea defences, and we need a clear plan for the St Clement corridor, because people should not be losing hours of their lives, sitting in traffic or wondering when the next flood is going to come. So let me be clear about the bigger picture. Too often, decisions are made through St Clement and not for it. We carry housing pressure, traffic congestion, and coastal risk. Yet we are too often overlooked when it comes to investment. That has to change, in my opinion, and I will fight for better housing conditions, a new youth facility, safer roads and better infrastructure, stronger support for our schools and families, protection of our environment, and a fairer tax system, one that supports those who are just about managing and protect pensioners from unfair burdens. Because this isn't just about policy, it's about people. And when I came to St Clement, my partner Max and I were welcomed into a strong and proud community. But I also see people struggling, feeling stuck, unheard and left behind. Hopelessness in a community is a real threat, and I will not accept that for some residents who are experiencing that now in St Clement. What you'll probably get from me is a genuine need to be supportive to people. I'm a hands-on politician, I don't pass the buck and I get involved. So if you want someone who will stand up for St Clement, challenge decisions that don't work and fight for a fair deal for this community, then I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Lindsay Ash.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you again for coming out in such numbers. This is the third time I've stood for election in St Clement. The first time I was successful, the second time rather less so. It's funny because when you are successful, obviously you don't ask too many questions. You're fantastic, the voters are fantastic, your policies are fantastic. But when you lose, you tend to question an awful lot of what you did wrong. Was it your haircut? Was it your tie? Was it your suit? Was it the fact you didn't wear enough deodorant? These things all go round. And when I first stood, Sister Mary Louise and the nuns all lived in St Clement, and I canvassed there. And to my surprise, on election day, the number one bus pulled up and the nuns got off and came in and voted. The second time I stood, the nuns had gone to France. They'd relocated to France. And I said to my other half, of course, this time I didn't have the nuns voting for me. And she said, no, you didn't, but I don't think there were 300 of them. It was a valid point. She made another valid point when she said your main trouble was you didn't tell people what you had done. So when you get this lovely blue leaflet through, I listed exactly what I did from 2018 to 2022, and I've also done so in the Vote.je pamphlet. Things like the spent local card, authorising for Andium to buy Spencer Close, saving people from eviction when they were given an eviction notice on Christmas Eve, if you can believe that, and working as part of a Treasury team that did not use the rainy day fund in COVID, saving the island literally millions of pounds. But what of the present and what of the future? Now, Sir Winston Churchill had a little red sticker that he used to put on a file or a letter of things he wanted done, and on it said, action this day. Now, I wonder if the states of Jersey have a similar one with inaction this day on it. Because we've seen plenty of inaction, haven't we? Inaction on the South Hill development. I've highlighted them in red here because it all costs a lot of money. Inaction on Fort Regent. Inaction on Lascay Youth Centre. Inaction on La Roquier School Sports Centre. Inaction on the Broad Street development. Inaction on a permanent home for netball. And of course, most importantly and farcically, inaction on the hospital. I'd like to take you now, and by the way, before I carry on, that is in no way a dig at the three deputies here, who I know fought very hard for Lascay and having a youth centre there, and they fought very hard for the parish. In fact, I've got no problem with you re-electing them. Well, two of them, anyway. Let me take you to 2014. 2014 was 2 years after the hospital was decided to be built, and Jersey Telecom were given the brief to fibre the island. By 2018, Jersey Telecom had fibred the entire island. By 2028, we will still not have a hospital. Now, why is that? Why does that happen? I'll tell you why. It's because Jersey Telecom have a board of directors who are professional people, and they don't listen to the noise outside. When they're hearing, oh, we don't need 3G, we don't need 4G, they don't care. They go ahead, they do it. The states of Jersey do not work like that. They hear outside noise, and we've had plenty of it on the hospital, including some sort of Timmy Mallet tribute act, and it goes on and on and on. And to put it in a sort of South London way, the states then bottle it. And by doing so, that hospital has now cost us, or will cost us, upwards of £1 billion more than it should do. Now, whoever is re-elected, they've got to make the hard decisions. And I'll leave you with the words of Sir Winston Churchill. who said, "You have enemies, good. That means you've stood up for something at some time in your life." Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Joanne van der Merwemaan.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight. The fact that this room is full matters. The simple act of showing up, listening, and connecting with one another is so important. For me, this is personal, because St. Clement is not just where I live, it is my home. I came to Jersey on a first date, and I fell in love with the island and the man. And from that moment, I knew this is where I wanted to build my life. Today, we have a daughter, and like so many parents, I think constantly about the future our children are growing up into. This connects me personally to the challenges families are facing today. The rising cost of living, housing pressures, education, transport, and parents and grandparents feeling left behind and lonely. Because when you're raising a child here, these stop being political talking points. They're real life. If you choose to elect me, I assure you St. Clement will always be my focus and priority. Now, preparing for tonight, my mum said something to me that really helped, because you can imagine I'm quite nervous. She said, "Just be yourself, use your own skills, and tell people why you're standing." And I'm standing because life on this beautiful island has become too complicated. For example, even after millions of pounds have been spent on government IT upgrades and integrations, people still hit barrier after barrier trying to do the simplest things: accessing joined-up medical care, completing their tax returns, trying to start or grow a business. At a high level, organizations with big brains and bank accounts can eventually force their way through the bureaucracy. But on an ordinary human level, overregulation is crushing hope, creativity, and initiative. Enough is enough. We are being swept away by a tide of our own making. We can overcome that tide, but only if we row together in the same direction. Now, audience participation, let's see. Please raise your hand if you think something in Jersey needs to change. Anyone? Okay. But who believes change is actually possible? Yeah. Because this is often where we get stuck. My hero, here's a surprise, Nelson Mandela once said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Every meaningful improvement once seemed impossible until people decided to work together and make it happen. Yes, some decisions will be difficult and change can be uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it. We need a team, focused, committed, and courageous enough to see things through. Time is not on our side. We need fresh ideas, fresh energy, and laser beam focus if we want to see this island flourishing again. And the good news is this: we already have the talent. There are practical, workable solutions to reduce unnecessary complexity, removing barriers that create a clearer path to a Jersey that is flourishing for everyone. We need an education system that is designed not only to educate our children, but to strengthen our island at the same time, joining youth and experience, one that actively creates opportunities here in Jersey for future nurses, carers, tradespeople, and community leaders, professions our island desperately needs, and careers that bring long-term fulfillment. This means we're going to need to build a culture that rewards effort, supports families, values education, and tells young people they can build a life here in Jersey. I don't stand here pretending to have all the answers, but what I do bring is over 3 decades of working with organizations through change, challenge, and growth. I've worked across hospitality, television, leadership development, and mentoring and upskilling programs, including 20 companies here in Jersey. What that experience has taught me is that real progress happens when people understand the plan, believe in the vision, and work together. If we keep approaching problems in the same way, protecting the same silos and having the same arguments, we will keep getting the same results. I'm standing because I know we can do better, not through blame, not through division, but by working together. Enough is enough. Please let me be your voice by giving me your vote. Thank you.
Barbara Ward.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for turning out in such great numbers. I'm Barbara Ward, and I'm standing for re-election as independent candidate for Deputy of St Clement. Back in June 22, I stood here and I promised to be more involved with the parish. I hope that you would agree that I have actually kept that promise. For me, it's been truly the best experience over the past 4 years. Working with the Connitab and my fellow deputies, the parish team, the fabulous volunteers that we have, and engaging with you, the parishioners. I've lived in St Clement for 36 years, so I can really call St Clement is my party. Before I came to Jersey in 1979, I trained as a registered mental health nurse and then trained as a general nurse in Jersey, and I've attained my master's degree in health. I've held a range of roles in health, from sister to matron to senior manager. My previous experience and voluntary roles, I was chairperson and lead negotiator for the Royal College of Nursing for 25 years. I was representative on the state's employees' pension scheme for 30 years, member of the Employment Forum for 10 years, and I'm also a member of the Variety Club, the Jersey's Children's Charity, which is very dear to my heart for the past 35 years. I've found that my life experience and skills gained have certainly stood me in good stead to be a state's member, given me confidence to play an active role, contribute to committee work, write and make speeches, and able to represent islanders on an individual and group basis. Initially, as a backbencher, it was very much a watch, listen and learn. And then I joined the Health Social Scrutiny Panel and the State's Employment Board. I was instrumental with the introduction of Rent-a-Room, which has raised a number of written and oral questions, especially on the double taxation of our social security contributions and old age pensions. Then in January 24, there was a change in government. It was all change, and I was invited to join the health ministerial team as Assistant Health Minister and member of the Legislation Advisory Panel and States Members representative on pensions, which I have thoroughly enjoyed. If successful, I'd wish to continue my role either as Minister or Assistant Minister in Health, as there's still lots to do. We need this new hospital built to be fully staffed and up and running. The health team have developed good working relationships, which is fundamental in such a large organisation, especially when we have many challenges ahead of us. We can hit the road running with reliability and continuity. I remain very concerned about the government's overspending and using the state's grants money that should be paid under a legal formula into the Social Security Fund, but instead withholding that money to use in addressing the government's overspend. This has to stop. Our pensions are precious. We need to listen to a diverse group of people living and working across these different sectors in Jersey, as there is a lot of expertise on this island who want the Jersey brand to be nourished, protected, affordable and fair in order to protect our future generations. I feel that's the way forward. I must say a huge thank you to all the people I've met so far while canvassing door to door, and especially the young people I met at the Candidates' Fair for the kindness, warmth and support shown me. It's been the highlight of this campaign, meeting people, their families and their pets. I haven't spoken to everyone. It's not an easy task getting around 4,300 properties and 10,500 residents, but I'll continue until polling day. So far, the issues that have been raised on the doorstep is so far top of the list, traffic and speeding in this parish. We need more 20 mile an hour and calming measures now, before somebody gets hurt or even killed. We need more open green spaces, improve our youth club and sports facilities. Get the new hospital built, they said, and sort out our waiting lists and appointments. There's cost of living and mental health issues as well. I'd like to say thank you very much for listening, and I hope that you will vote for Barbara on the 7th of June. Thank you very much, everyone.
Mick Robbins.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. I've lived in Jersey all my life, and that's not by accident, it's by choice. I love this island. I believe this island is a special place. But if I'm honest with you, I'm worried. I'm worried about what life is like these days for so many people in Jersey, because something isn't right anymore. People are doing everything they were told to do. They're working hard, they're raising families, they're paying their taxes and playing by the rules. And yet more and more people feel like they're falling behind. I speak to people who are exhausted, people who lie awake at night worrying about bills, parents who skip meals so their children can eat properly, older people sitting in cold homes because they're frightened to turn the heating on. And what really breaks my heart is this. These are decent, hard-working islanders doing their absolute best, and they're still struggling. That should concern every single one of us, because I remember a different Jersey. I remember growing up believing that if you worked hard and did the right thing, you could build a life here. Not a life of luxury, but a life with dignity, a life you felt secure in, where you believed tomorrow could be better than today. Too many people don't feel that anymore. And when people lose hope, when they stop believing things can improve, that's when society starts to lose its way. That's why I'm standing for election, because I cannot sit back and watch ordinary people being squeezed harder and harder while politics carry on as normal. I've been an ordinary working man all my life. I know what pressure feels like. I know what it's like when money's tight. And throughout my life, whether serving as a police officer, working in scrutiny, or representing working people through union work, I've always believed in standing up for people who feel unheard. And Middle Jersey at the moment is not being heard. I'm proud to stand with Reform Jersey. It's already shown that politics can still make a difference. Its achievements include free GP visits for children and students, free childcare hours for young families, and numerous other practical changes that genuinely help people breathe a little easier. But there's still so much more to do, because behind every statistic is a human being. Behind every cost of living crisis headline, there's a parent worrying sick about money. Behind every discussion about housing, there's a young couple wondering why if they'll ever have a place of their own. I want us to become a society that remembers compassion again, a society that values people, not just balance sheets. I want our charities and community organisations to be properly supported and respected for the incredible work they do every day. I want us to protect the island we love, our coastline, our countryside, our wildlife, because once those things are lost, they're lost forever. I want us to continue fighting injustice and exploitation wherever it exists, including the uncomfortable reality that modern-day slavery still exists here in Jersey. And I want to support local businesses, because they're not just businesses, they are families, livelihoods, and the heart of our community. But we also need honesty and accountability. People have every right to be angry when public money is wasted. Just look at the hospital, £200 million, while ordinary families are told there is no money for essential support. You have a right to be angry, you have a right to demand answers, and you have a right to demand change. And here in St Clement's, we need to rebuild that sense of community and belonging. We need spaces for young people, support for older residents, and facilities that bring people together instead of leaving them isolated. Because loneliness, anxiety, and financial stress are becoming part of the everyday life for too many islanders. and that should never be normal. I genuinely believe Jersey can be better than this. I believe we can build an island where hard work is rewarded again, where families feel secure again, where older people feel respected again. But none of that happens by accident. It happens when people come together and demand change, real change. Not empty promises, not politics as usual, real action that improves people's lives. That's what Reform Jersey stands for: teamwork, accountability, and action. That is the Jersey I believe in. And if you place your trust in me, that's exactly what both Noah and I will work towards. It's time to turn the tide. Thank you very much.
Alex Curtis.
Good evening, I'm Alex Curtis, one of your current deputies for St Clement. Firstly, I would like to thank those of you who voted for me 4 years ago. It has been challenging but worthwhile, and I've been very appreciated to be in the States representing St Clement's. By way of background, I was born in Jersey and grew up in the parish just by the Pontac Co-op. Before working representing yourselves, I spent 6 years working for Microsoft. I trained customers in technology and then went on to create AI and machine learning solutions that improved productivity and reduced costs in businesses, in governments across 13 countries. I've also started my own business, Vote.je Distillery. It is the only genuine Jersey gin and vodka distillery in the island and has been running now for 10 years. I'm passionate about local produce and a diverse economy and understand the issues facing many local businesses. This business is now managed by my partner, Thea, enabling me to work for yourselves in my full capacity. So what have I done for the past 4 years? Well, when I stood for the role, I set out my vision and values, including protecting our island, managing costs, supporting a diverse economy, and increasing minimum standards for housing. So whilst being a Assistant Chief Minister for Digital, I managed spend carefully, driving lean budgets and more local procurement. I challenged a planned multi-million-pound IT project as government was not ready for it and the approach was not right. And as such, I've saved significant costs. I've also worked on 3 scrutiny panels: corporate services, environment, housing and infrastructure, and the hospital review panel. It's my work in these teams that has helped improve legislation lodged by ministers and our panels, such as the food laws, animal welfare, and improving the quality of the residential tenancy law. I'm particularly concerned about planning and the environment. And in the past 4 years, I've sat on the planning committee with the last 2 as vice chair. I've worked hard to drive fair and balanced decisions and chair effective meetings. Planning decisions cannot please everyone, but I believe that well-reasoned decisions from well-managed meetings can demonstrate fairness in the process. And I've worked as an independent member on a wide range of issues, able to bring my experience and the views of parishioners to debates and decisions. I believe in making Jersey a fair place for those who live here, and so I work proactively with government to reduce the time for permanent entitled residency status from 30 years to 25. And I've improved laws like the new alcohol licensing law and have been vocal in the Assembly when needed, particularly arguing against unnecessary spend, excessive borrowing, and the introduction of new charges like the rented dwelling licence fee. Through consultation, I secured meaningful improvements in residential space standards, and I worked through the detail on many elements of Assembly work. It truly has been a pleasure to represent the parishioners of St Clement. Your challenges and perspectives have led to the propositions I have lodged, the questions I have asked, and the work that I have undertaken, and I continue to work with parishioners on long-running issues. But now looking forward, we do hear a lot about the common themes: the cost of living, red tape, government spending, and housing. But we need politicians ready to make changes where needed and bring their own solutions. And so if elected, I will continue to fight to keep spending within our revenue, and I believe that the government should go further and be saving for the future. We must reinstate the full grant to the Social Security Fund to protect future pension payments, and I will stand true to that. And I'm keen to drive affordable and appropriate digital solutions to improve the efficiency and drive down costs. But I believe we must retain in-person and paper options for those who want them and need them. And it will be the next Assembly that creates the next island plan, the rules for development around the island. It's clear our housing needs have changed, and we do not need to rezone any new fields for housing in St Clement. We must also protect hospitality and visitor economy sites to ensure we have businesses providing for tourists and keeping our flight routes open. My experience in planning means I'm ready to help shape a sustainable plan for the next 10 years, one that protects the environment and the character of Jersey that we love. I've worked across a wide range of island-wide issues, and I will continue to do so. And I will support small moves up to big strategic changes, such as a reform of our property registry to make buying and selling a home cheaper and simpler. I've detailed more policies on my website, or get in touch. And lastly, as deputies, we've held meetings with the Connotab almost every month for 4 years. We've heard parish concerns, from dog fouling to speeding, and I want to support the parish with government departments to actually address these. We know that there's a lot of negativity, but I want to see the optimism that Jersey is an amazing place. We must be passionate and supportive of, and it has been an honour to represent St Clement. And I would ask you to consider me for one of your votes. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all the candidates. Well, you've heard the speeches. Now it's time for questions. If you want to ask a question, please wait for the microphone to be brought to you. Tell us your full name and confirm that you are a St Clement parishioner. Ask one question and then hand the mic back to the person who's handing them round. And please bear in mind that every candidate needs to be able to answer your question, so don't ask specific questions of one person. And keep your questions succinct. Let's leave the speeches to the candidates. If we have time, I can come back to people who want to ask a second question, but let's start with getting as many people asking as possible. So, who wants to ask a question? Any hands up? Right, yeah, there's somebody at the back there, and then we'll go to the person over the back there who's got their hand up. So first here.
Hi, Mike Kidman, St Clement's. Overdale unit, physio unit. It was built like £40 million. Everyone raved about it. It's now been pulled down. Not only have we not got a hospital now, that one massive facility we had, which was quite simply superb, has now disappeared. The daycare centres for old people, they're disappearing. I don't see any movement in government whereby things are a plus, it's all a negative. We're losing things. The Fort Regent is disgusting. The fact that's actually gone. You know, it's a fort in the 14th century. Now they're saying they're going to spend...
Have you got a question? Because it's turning into a bit of a speech.
Okay. I want to see where things can be reinstated. And as I say, why was that physio unit taken down? That's absolutely ridiculous. It did about 18 years. That cost about 40 million. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. Noah Jervis first.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your question. I'm really sorry to hear that. I can't give you an answer on why, but I know what we need to do about it. We need infrastructure now, and that's not just in health, that's across the board. We need infrastructure now that works for islanders and will work for a very long time. Crumbling infrastructure that's been kicked down the can for many, many years is not helping anyone. And to kickstart this island, to keep a healthy island, we need, this new hospital will be part of it, but things like Fort Regent needs to be investment within the next 4 years that will make islanders' lives easier. Thank you.
Let's move on to Karen.
Thank you very much. I think I don't want to rehearse all of the history around the development of the hospital, but clearly where I stand on it is that we should have had it delivered by now. And one of the things that I think is missing is the fact that there is no clear strategy for health that actually shapes the future of the way in which health services need to be provided. And I'm really disappointed that we still, after even a change in government, haven't seen that come forward. In terms of broader infrastructure, I don't think this, I think this, what this does is it actually points to a fact that we do not have any clear vision for the island. And decisions like this are taken in isolation. I think people see it as a problem and they need to fix it. We need much longer term consideration of what our infrastructure needs are, and my preference would be to actually fix some of the infrastructure problems that we've got already.
Lindsay Ash.
Thank you. I think it's a very good point, and I've touched on it earlier in my speech. Hopefully this time we will have to push ahead with the hospital. What you may or may not realise, when in 2022 with the Our Hospital project, we were informed that if it wasn't finished by 2026, just to keep this hospital open in its current state was going to cost £30 million a year. And I think, as far as I can see, that is still the case. And as far as the Overdale unit, that has obviously been removed to build a new hospital, but alternative measures should have been put in place. And I think too many times things have been swept away and not replaced. I hope, and I haven't seen the new plans, but there is plan for something to replace it within that structure, although at the moment it seems that it's not going to be one structure, it's going to be scattered in 2 or 3 sites, which again will add up huge amounts of costs. You imagine if you've got 3 separate houses, you've got 3 separate lots of costs. So hopefully we can go ahead and build it, because we have to. There is now no alternative.
Joanne.
Well, when you're fourth, everybody's kind of covered everything. But I would say this. Thank you for your question, Mike. I think everybody is agreed. We're just ready for things to happen. If I were elected, what I would push for is a timeline so that everybody on the island could buy into the vision, we could get behind the vision, and we could lead the change as it goes. So my point is there needs to be a plan. I agree with Karen. It needs to be joined up. We need to look at right from education, what we're telling our kids so that we're not having this problem later on, and then join the plan up and clue everybody in so that we can all be behind the plan as we go and help make it happen so that we don't lose momentum again.
Barbara.
Mike, thank you for your question, which was, it was Samari, I think you were talking about, not the physio. Why was it knocked down at Overdale after 18 years? Granted, it's to make way for the new hospital. That was the previous one. That has now, it was recited at St Ewolds, and also the outpatients department was actually cited at the Enid Kenno facility. So that is what is happening. So it wasn't say there was nothing. We have got rehabilitation services. It's called Samari at St Ewolds. And then we're going to look in the future to have a purpose built, and that will be up at St Saviour's, which will be all singing and dancing. Really smart rehabilitation unit and step-down bed facility. And I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Mick.
Thank you very much. I suppose the truth of the matter is that I have no idea why this unit has disappeared. But what I have noticed over recent years is a general decline in the health provision on the island altogether. And I have a particular issue with the mental health issues provision in the island, particularly for children, where a child may take 2 years of its childhood to get an assessment, and nothing happens without an assessment, and then CAMS move along and do absolutely nothing. That's harsh, but they appear to do nothing in the cases that I'm aware of. So I think the health sector needs a good looking at overall in terms of the provision they are actually giving the island. And that's, of course, without talking about the new hospital at all. But I think there's an awful lot of work to be doing there to ensure that we get the service we deserve. Thank you.
Alex Curtis.
Thank you. Starting on the demolition of Overdale, the site did receive permission, and what I would say is now we have to continue with the scheme that's there and actually get something built. So I'm completely behind seeing what has got approval being built, and I think Deputy Ward touched on the reciting of it. I want to talk about the infrastructure part here, though, because that is a really important part. We aren't investing a lot in infrastructure. The revenue expenditure infrastructure at the moment is 5% of the government's revenue. And we know our infrastructure needs more maintenance. The risk we have, though, is when we're investing in things like the fort, all the money right now to redo the fort is coming from borrowing. And that's something that I voted against because we have to fund our infrastructure from our own money. I'm not supportive of borrowing to redo our infrastructure. And there's a wider issue really at play here, which is infrastructure is costing a lot of money. Oakfield came out at £10 million to deliver. 16 million for the Ann Street Brewery facility to build a youth centre, and we all know what Broad Street costs. We need to look at the costs and why it's so expensive to deliver new infrastructure.
Thank you to the candidates for those answers. The next question. So there was a person over there who had their hand up.
Good evening. My name is Peter Harrison. I live in St Clement. would each of you like to tell us whether you're comfortable with the present level of committed borrowing, possibly with the exception of Alex, who's made his position clear already?
Karen Wilson will be answering this question first.
Thank you, Peter. That's a really important question. I've sat on the Public Accounts Committee and I've seen just how much waste is applied to the way in which we manage our public purse. And I am uncomfortable with the way in which borrowing is used as a sticking plaster to cover essential services. The problem that we've got is that we are spending more than we're bringing in, and a number of conversations have certainly been circulating about how do you actually tackle the cost of borrowing, and one of the things is to stop spending on non-essential services and non-essential developments. So the short answer to your question is, yes, I'm very concerned about it because I think we are stacking up problems for a group of younger people who will follow us, for future generations. The burden on them is not recognised, and we need to get real with this and start to address it.
Lindsay.
I think it's a great question. And I think borrowing always comes down to what you're borrowing for. If you're borrowing to buy a new house, for instance, then borrowing's acceptable. In the last assembly, prior to this one, and it wasn't perhaps given the publicity that it deserved, we actually borrowed £500 million for the Peckers public employment pension scheme. And we borrowed it at around 2%. Now, over the next 50 years, in real terms, that will save the island £3.5 billion. And when John Lafondre was asked by the press why hadn't anyone done that before, he replied quite correctly, I don't know, you'd better ask them. So I think if you're borrowing for the right things, it's 100% right. If you're borrowing for vanity projects, it's a disgrace.
Joanne.
Thank you. I love the analogy of the mortgage because that's exactly how I would look at it. I would look at, if I don't want us to obviously keep running the civil service at the rate that we're running it, because I think that's costing us way too much money and it's complicating our lives. So I don't agree with that, and I think there are definitely savings to be made there. That, you know, we keep hearing about how amazing AI is. Well, how come we can't have the, you know, digital jersey that we own join up everything for us so that it immediately removes a lot of the very expensive, you know, I love the civil servants that are working hard, but I'm sure you've all had the same problem. So I would like that to help us. But in terms of investing, borrowing to invest in things that we need, we're going to have to do that. That's the grown-up decision to take. So I would support borrowing, depending on what the borrowing was for.
Thank you. Barbara.
I'm very uncomfortable about the government withholding money from our Social Security Fund, which is up to over £400 million, that's with interest, over the next 4 years to pay for the nice-to-haves. We can borrow for property like a mortgage, but everything else we need to be cutting back and being absolutely crystal about what we're spending money on, instead of some of these arm's-length organisations where we're spending millions. This has to stop. We have to have better housekeeping within our government. Thank you.
Mick.
Yes, I also have a problem with borrowing for everyday matters. I do appreciate the argument that it's cheaper sometimes to borrow for major projects than it is to use other means, and I think Lindsay explained that extremely well to us. But it does worry me that things like staff costs, which have moved from £390 million in 2019 to £664 million in 2025, 70% increase, is going to put pressure on government to want to borrow more. And I think that is absolutely out of the question. Thank you.
Alex.
Thank you. Well, most countries that borrow only go one way. They borrow for one or two items, they borrow a little more for other reasons, and all of a sudden governments run deficits and borrow every year. we don't have the luxury of large countries. We have no monetary policy. And so we have to be rock solid on our financial responsibility. And I will say that means hard decisions. And when you look at where we spend our money in government, the truth is, and I will refer to this a lot, it mostly goes on health and education. So the decisions aren't easy. But at the end of the day, I'm not satisfied with borrowing for many projects. We've accepted it for the hospital, but even things like shoreline defences, we have to cut our cloth accordingly, because I'm looking out for the island in 50 to 100 years' time, because I can tell you it's the generations after me that need to inherit a strong island.
Thank you, everybody. Now, who else wants to ask a question? Okay, we'll go. Oh, sorry. Noah, sorry. Here we go.
Thanks for that. Thanks for your question, Peter. And I agree with a lot of the other candidates. The buck cannot be placed on future generations to pay for the projects of now. But similarly, we can't have austerity. Things do need to be paid for, and including education and health, because we should be using the money we have to fund better lives for people today. We need to review what we are spending money on. We need to make cuts in government, 100%, especially on things like consultants. But if we can save that money and we can use borrowing responsibly to make people's lives better across the island, then yes, that is something that is sustainable. But no, we can't unsustainably borrow 100%.
Thank you. Now it's time for the next question. Fancy, some people had some hands up. There's one over there. Anybody else to come to after that? And then we'll come down here afterwards. So we'll go there to that lady first, and then to this gentleman.
Hello, I'm Debbie Bodow. I live in St Clement's, and what's all been said, with all the intended expenditure in infrastructure, travel, hospital, education, etc., which is important, how do you think we can grow the economy to meet some of this expenditure? Thank you.
Lindsay.
There are various ways that we have to look at growing the economy. Obviously, we now have, and it's massive wherever you look, you only have to go on your own computers. AI is a massive area that we can now look at, because if we don't, we're going to get left behind. And I would like to see us partner up as a government with one of the big universities in the UK and bring them over here. We put some money up, they put some money up, and we become a centre of excellence for that. Because AI is with us to stay. There's nothing we can do about it. Personally, I'm not a great fan because I think it will take jobs, but that's the way it's going to be. And if it is going to be like that, we can lead on it. Estonia have done it in other areas. There's no reason why Jersey should be left behind. So I think certainly in the technological sphere, we can be leaders.
Joanne.
Thank you very much for your question, Debbie. I'm very passionate about what you've just spoken about. I think for our economy, there are some simple wins. If anybody here, and I've done it, I know Alex has, if you started a small business, you know the red tape is extraordinary. The cost of everything seems to be plucked out of the sky. And I happen to know from walking around, the little bit of walking around I've had a chance to do, speaking to people that are on our island, we've got so many talented people with such initiative that want to start amazing businesses that will be useful to our economy locally, even in our own parish, that will bring in, not just useful services, but that obviously kickstart things. I also would love to see us diversify our crops on this island. I'd love to see us supporting the fishing community, because if you look into that, even just peel one level of the onion back, you will see how scandalous that is, with regards to the cost that those guys have to pay. So I think we've got plenty of opportunities, and hospitality, I still think it's not dead on this island, so we could breathe fresh life into that too.
Barbara.
I think we've got to keep encouraging from a financial business point of view, encourage businesses around the world to actually keep investing in Jersey, that we've got a lot to offer. We've got a lot of stability here. There's also something we can do locally, and that is we have got really high rents here in Jersey, which is ridiculous. It's better to lower the rent so that people have more money in their pocket to spend locally, and then they can contribute to our economy. Economy is not just bought by one element, it is quite a multi-pronged approach to improving our economy basis here in Jersey. Thank you.
Mick.
Well, I believe growing the economy is primarily done by supporting local businesses, making regulation more appropriate and streamlined to stimulate economic activity. As has been mentioned, for every pound that the ordinary person has in their wallet to spend, that tends to go in town, on restaurants, on shops, and supporting our economy. And if we can get that circle growing, I think it will help the cost of living significantly. Freight costs, of course, have a lot to answer for on this, and I think there's a lot of work to be done there. But small steps need to be taken as well. Doctors' fees, bus fares, the Pension Plus, which Reform Jersey's done a lot of work on, and further free childcare hours would all help put that money back into the system. Thank you.
So, I would start by saying I never thought I'd sit here and say part of growing the economy is to really double down on the finance industry. And I'm not saying we do double down, but we do know there are areas that need to be worked on to remain competitive there. And actually, luckily, many of those apply to other businesses. Digital has been mentioned. One of the challenges I've seen with digital is there's very little to attract businesses uniquely to Jersey. But what does make Jersey a good place, or could be a good place, is simplicity. And that goes across all businesses when you help it. We have wonderful homegrown talent in digital, companies worth millions of pounds who export their digital services out by Jersey founders with Jersey employees. They are great businesses we want to foster, to support, and we want to diversify the economy, but we can't be under any illusion that diversifying the economy with agriculture isn't going to solve the key part of tax take. So if we do want the tax levels we're taking in now, we do want to look at hospitality, ensure that remains a good part of the visitor economy, but actually making sure we're fit and modern in the industries we're best at now is really important if we want to see a strong economy.
Noah.
Thank you very much. That's a great question. There's a lot to get through in a minute. One of the big things as we look at the emerging economies that are coming up, green, digital, tech are all things we can do on the island. We can't do those things without having an educated and skilled workforce to do that. So let's get people in apprenticeships, in jobs in those fields, because they're only going to continue to grow over the next few years. Additionally, entrepreneurship. There are so many brilliant entrepreneurs on Ireland. We do need to cut tape. I speak with small businesses, new businesses every day. Even things like registering for a certificate with the JFSC is really difficult for businesses. And form filling, it should be minimised to a point where having a business, creating a business, having an idea is encouraged in Jersey. That idea is fostered. And also things like we've got traditional industries like tourism, and those things can be alive. We can encourage it. It's been really difficult with ferries and how we've got less and less French visitors every year. But there are ways we can attract people here and ways we can revitalise that industry as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
Thank you. Daisy, I think one of the things that is affecting or has impacted on our economy is island connectivity. It's making it really difficult for people to come and go in terms of bringing their skills and the businesses that they want to set up here. And the other thing that I think that we can do is to remove some of those barriers. So to make sure that we have got really good island connectivity, to make sure that we've actually got minimal regulation, that we've got incentives for people to actually develop start-up businesses and develop those, not just in the island, but also promote and market those. And I think Jersey Business has got a really good opportunity to be our advocate, not only locally, but internationally, in terms of trying to get Jersey produce out there. I think the ferry undoubtedly has had an impact on the economic circumstances in the island. And as you know, we did a review of that. And I think we need to look closely about what we can learn about productivity and the cost of freight that have an impact on the economy at the moment.
Thank you. Now our next question, this gentleman down here. I can see it, that's flashing its lights out now. Okay, I think that's sorted. Let's go back to our questioner.
I'm Oscar LeBray. I live in St Clement's. What specific changes would you support to improve post-16 education in Jersey so that students who don't go straight to university still have strong, affordable pathways into skilled jobs and careers?
Thank you for that. Joanne, you first.
Well, thank you. What an awesome question. I think, we had the question about infrastructure and how much we would spend on infrastructure. Well, our youth, our people, our young people, that is the infrastructure of the future. And we absolutely 100% to get laser beam focused on how we're going to look after our young people. So 16 plus at the moment, and as you can tell, I was not born in St. Juan's, I was born in South Africa. I only just recently learned that on this island, there is exactly one school that has, after 16, A-level options that is free to children. That makes absolutely no sense to me at all on any level. I know everybody says to me, you've got Highlands, so I went and had a look at how many people actually filtered through into Highlands. When we don't provide lots of 16-plus options for our children, it tells our children, that's it, off you go. And if any of you have had to try and get your kids into work, 16 plus, that is tricky business as well. So we need to invest here fast, and we need to not mess around and need to get working on that. I think it's a number one priority for our island. Barbara.
Thank you, Austin, very much for that question. People leave at 16. The ones who stay on are going down the academic route. This might be very controversial, but I would like to see the leaving age to be 18, and that we put on proper vocational and apprenticeship courses for people who aren't academic. But they are very practical, and they will be a much rounded individual at the age of 18. And I would love to see that. So some of those skills, it means that when you do leave and go into work, you know what to do. And stop this boredom. Okay, I would like to see that investment. I don't know whether you would agree with me to go to 18. I would leave that with you.
Meg.
Yes, fabulous question. Thank you. I think that one of the main points that we could really do some good on is to increase the size and the scope of the University of Jersey up at Highlands. I think we could encourage a lot more of our local youngsters to stay here if we had courses at Highlands that would attract them and allow them to do the things they want to do. And if we were to do that, I think we could also expand it to the point where we could offer courses for students from outside the island, which would help support the whole process. Thank you.
Alex.
So, firstly, I've put in my manifesto that is in your door, or if not, will be delivered by me at some point soon, that I think funding for education should be fair and proportionate across academic and the vocational. And this is something we have debated in the States, is the deal for those pursuing vocational pathways on island fair enough compared to what we are funding for academic work off island? And the honest answer, I think, probably is not at the moment. And so there has to be a hard conversation as to how do we fund both. And even, one thing I've been hearing from people in this election is the current funding, even for academic funding, have cliff edges in them. And so I think really we have to have a more nuanced approach that ensures proportionate funding for those who want to go skill. And then when we do have apprenticeships on the island, we need to work with those employers to make sure the time spent on that apprenticeship is valuable so that those learning a vocational skill upskill as quick as they can to be competent in that job, go out, either stay with there and have a really good job in that and make sure they're not being used as, lower grade, low labour, but actually really getting talent early on in that vocational career.
Noah.
Brilliant. It's a brilliant question. Thank you so much. It's not just about making sure the opportunity is here for young people. It's about also making Jersey an attractive place to live. Things you hear from young people all the time are housing concerns. If you leave school at 16 and you go straight into a rental market, it's going to be really tough. But if we can have a deposit saver scheme, so as soon as you go into work, you can start working towards that house, that's one thing we can do. The other thing is just supporting things like trades. They are AI-proof jobs. The things that'll be around for a long time. If people who want to do them can make excellent opportunity and excellent money in Jersey. It's a great place for it, so we need to encourage that. And one of the things to look at would be if you do want to go back into education, education should be lifelong. The opportunity should be there. So if you go into work at 16, If you come back 21, 22, 23, that opportunity should be there for you. Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree with what most candidates have said. I think the other thing that I would just add to it is that we don't really have a relationship between what is going on in the employment field and what the aspirations are of young people. And I think we really need to look at that to see if we can get better matching and better understanding of where those particular career pathways need to be. I think the other thing is that we need to start thinking about giving choice and control to younger people about how they might want to get their education. So I'm all for supporting bursaries and actually investing in particularly apprenticeships, because I think they are the way, they are the entry point into skilled labour. And one of the things that people talk to me a lot is they can't get proper skills around joinery, plumbing, heating appliances, electricians. We've got a new hospital coming. We're going to need a lot of skilled tradesmen. So I want investment in those training programmes for going forward.
Lindsay.
Yes, I think apprenticeships are a great way to go. They always were a great way to go in the past, and it's a shame they've slipped off the scale a little bit. Vocational courses are great, and Highlands actually operate one that I went to see when I was in office, and it was fantastic. It was called the Uniformed Services Course, so it did the Army, Navy, Fire Brigade, Customs, Ambulance, and the fascinating thing was, I said, I guess all these people come in, they want to be a fireman. He said, yeah, they do, it's the natural way to go. So, but by the end, they wanted to be in Customs because they found it a fascinating job with so many different dimensions that they hadn't realised. And they also, while doing that course, picked up huge amounts of life skills, cardio stuff, all that sort of that. And part of it, of course, was the sporting side of it. And all the children who've done it, and they're not children, they're young people, I should say, they have loved it. It's that sort of thing we should be looking at doing.
Thank you for all those answers. Any more questions? So we've got two down here. If we go with the lady at the end and then the one nearer to this side. One in from the side.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Delahaye and I do live in St Clement's. My question is to you is how do we keep young people staying in Jersey, young adults? Thank you.
Okay, how do we keep young adults staying in Jersey? Barbara is answering this question first.
Thank you, Kathy, for that question. I don't think there's any easy solution to keeping young people. I mean, I came from Warrington and I left when I was young and I've not been back. I think there's a natural wanting to move away anyway, to explore, to do education, sports, etc. It isn't just one thing. But I think we have to invest in with apprenticeships, with valuing them at school, and helping them and giving them jobs. I think that can actually help to try and keep the younger person here, and that we need them. Okay?
Mick.
Yes, this has been quite a problem. One of my children is not in Jersey because it didn't offer what was required for her. But I believe generally young people are not that different from the rest of it when it comes down to the basic needs that we're looking for. They want they want decent housing to be available to them at a reasonable cost. They want the access to jobs that are going to stimulate them, particularly if they're coming back from university with particular skills. So the more we diversify our economy, the better it will be for keeping young people here. Further sports things are needed to keep people occupied. One of my youngsters is a basketball fan, and although there are facilities here, there could be a lot more because the demand seems to be there for them. So we need to go along those roads as well. Thank you.
Alex.
So there's nothing inherently wrong with people leaving the island. I left to go to university and I worked away before I came back. And I came back because I like the island and I think it is a great place for younger people to live. But in saying that, what I do think is housing and the type of housing we have is really important. We've seen huge amounts of development outside our parish as well for flats, and we do need a mix of flats, but we also need housing that when you are a younger person looking at how you're going to start a family, it's a type of housing you live in. And we're losing houses to flats as well. And it's a really tricky problem because we're pushed on being told we need more housing. I don't believe we do. I think the data shows we don't. What we need to do is retain good housing. And also, we should be optimistic about what there is on the island. It is still a great place to live. As somebody who is, I dare say, 31, I think it's a great place. And I think we should support people going away, exploring, coming back. But also, I think it can be a great place for those who leave school and get a job immediately. And I say that knowing the people because they're around my age.
Thank you. Noah.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks so much for your question. The number one thing I hear from any young person who wants to leave the island is affordability. We need affordable housing. We need the idea that people can own a home. It's something that's very important to young people. But also, one of the things I hear a lot is there's just not the opportunity for people to have a good time in Jersey. There's less money in their pockets. We've got a struggling nighttime economy. We've got a lack of opportunities for people to upskill or have education. All these things we can do. We need to have a resilient economy that has a diverse range of jobs for young people to do. We need young people to have the hope and the optimism that they can own a home so they can see themselves here in the long term. And we also need to make it easier for events to happen and for things like Fort Regent to be completed so there is a very attractive place for young people to live. Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you. I agree with most of what's been said. The other thing that I would ask is what do you believe would keep you in Jersey? And I don't think we know enough from young people as to what we need to do. So I would support more engagement with younger people to get some evidence from them as to what will matter. And one of the things that I think we do need to think about is whether our tax programme actually supports young people to be solvent and to earn a decent standard of living and get on their feet. And for me, that's about looking at different types of thinking about how people's lives are effective. So for me, looking at tax on young people, already we've started to look at housing, and I think we can see some young people developing, their own housing solutions. But for me, the thing that's really important is what can we do to make life affordable and interesting for young people to stay in the island? And I think we need to be asking young people on that basis.
Lindsay.
Thank you. I think to an extent we've been a victim of our own success with certain young people leaving, because we probably send more young people to university now than we ever have. And of course, and I was talking to a young lady on the doorstep the other day, and she's going away to do aeronautical engineering. Well, she's not going to be coming back here if she wants to pursue that as a career. Same if you're doing microsciences. So we are in a way successful. There's also the fact people have always left the island. Some come back, some don't. I feel what we do need, and Alex touched on this, we have to create the right sort of housing for people with young families. Maybe even little sort of terrace dwellings, 2 beds, small garden, so somewhere you can bring up a young family. And we haven't seen enough of that built. And I remember talking to Jess Perchard when she was in the States. We had a great plan to build it all at St Saviour's, starter homes, retirement homes, everything. Sadly, that's been shelved for the moment, but hopefully we can revisit.
Joanne.
Thank you. Love this question again. It goes back to the foundations, I think, of investing in our youngsters. Marcus spoke about a fantastic vision. We own the Gloucester Street site. We now know the hospital is going to be at the top of the hill. We also own Kensington Place. So I love the idea of a vision of building an Olympic-style village where we can have, what we need. We need people to train in physiotherapy and nursing and plumbing and carpenters. We need all these people. Imagine if we built a village that was subsidized living for people that are going into these businesses, and we could subsidize them while they're training, subsidize them while they're getting on their feet so that they can start building to a future that they love. Because Jersey is somewhere that youngsters want to live. I work with a lot of youngsters in London all the time. You show them pictures of Jersey versus what they're putting up with in Feltham in London. I promise you, this is a dreamy island. We can get them here, and we need them to be here because our population is in decline. So investing in this, I think, would be a very, very worthwhile exercise.
Thank you. Next question, this lady here.
Hi, I'm Stacey, St Clement's as well. There's been a lot of talks about some of the benefits. So you're saying about childcare fees, trying to improve housing conditions, mainly in Andium. Barbara's talking about trying to reduce rent for people so we could spend more locally. All good if you're a tenant and you have children. Not everyone is in that position. One thing I would want to know, because there seems to be a lack of it, is what support for homeowners is there? Because things like lower rent, that's not going to help me with my mortgage, not with all the increase in the interest rates, parish rates. Then you've got the increasing insurance for your home, your content. And then what about the home deterioration? So yeah, if you buy through Andium, they had that before, but they've just covered it up. So what can you do to support homeowners?
Okay, Mick Robbins is going to answer this first.
What a fabulous question. What a fabulous question. Thank you, Stacey. I believe the most important thing that we can do to support homeowners here is initially to try and adjust the initial cost of houses, which puts it out of reach immediately for a lot of people. But even if you do get a house, as you referred to, you immediately put yourself into a position of financial straits, because the mortgage is usually quite tough to start with. I think that Reform have done some work on that in that score, on making first-time buyers easy. There used to be years ago a first-time buyer scheme which had a very good interest rate for people buying houses, and I think that is a scheme that could be revisited perhaps. But I also think that the more work we put into making the economy improve, the better it will be for everybody.
Alex.
Thank you, Stacey. I think first, when it comes to homeowners, whether new buyers or existing, making sure the ease of purchasing a home is a really important thing, and there are positive improvements we can make to the public registry to make that easier, and it's a long-term strategic drive, and it's a small one, but we can go down it. In planning, there are areas where we can improve. Those who own homes, who want to support families, our policies on two-generation homes and how one enables two families to have independent lives with two kitchens in homes isn't well designed enough, and our Next Island plan may let us make more two-generation homes in the existing stock. But then I just want to touch on the last part, which is the benefits for certain areas, childcare and renting. At the end of all of this, we are carving up our own money and redistributing it. In Jersey, 85% of our general revenue income is a form of personal taxation, personal tax, GST. And so if we want to find benefits to homeowners, we are ultimately recycling the dollars to share the equity in certain ways, and it's a hard move to make. But there are things we can do structurally to make homes better, planning and, as I say, the registry.
Noah.
Hi, Stacey. Thanks so much for your question. I find it always really exciting when I see someone, young people in particular, who get to own their home from a young age, because I know how much hard work that takes. And that is exceptional. And what we can do, we can help with mortgages. We need to look at protecting people who've just bought their new home, especially in turbulent economic times. But the other thing we need to do is when people own their first home, is if they do ever plan expanding that family or growing their family, we need to make sure they can upsize into accommodation that's suitable for them and is good for their family as well, so that can become a home for life. So getting on the property ladder is one thing. We need to support people who've got on the property ladder, but also those who are looking to upsize. We need to make sure there are mechanisms for that as well. Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you, Stacey. I think what you've touched on are really the costs of home ownership and what we can do to actually alleviate the burden of some of those costs. And one of the things I do think we need to look at is the cost of things like energy, and also how government can actually provide some tax incentives for more home ownership. I think the other thing that is really important is that we do need to look at some of the wider issues affecting people the burden on their purse. So, for example, we talked about childcare, we talked about flexible working. We need to do a lot more around that sort of area to actually make it easier for people to be economically active and not have to struggle to find the cost of their mortgage. So for me, those are the key things, I think, is to look at ways in which we can incentivise home ownership, kickstart first-time buyers even to a much greater extent that we have done, and make sure that we've got some alternatives for people to move into as their family grows.
Lindsay.
Thank you. Obviously, mortgage rates are something that's pretty much beyond our sphere. It's governed by the Bank of England. I think there are home improvement grants that could be looked at as to how far we can go, making places more energy efficient, which then brings your bills down. There is mortgage tax relief that used to be the case in Jersey, and that could be brought back. The only problem with mortgage tax relief, it makes homes a lot more affordable, and suddenly you see property prices go up and get out of the reach of so many people. So it's a bit of a catch-22, that one. So whilst there are certain things we could do, some of them aren't necessarily the right course of action.
Joanne.
Thank you. As a homeowner myself, I completely sympathise with where you're at. We all saw the jump in our mortgages a few years ago, which almost meant that we were not going to be homeowners because it was so dramatic. So I really do feel for you. I would agree with Lindsay. I see it now, having asked the difficult questions. It is a double-edged sword, so there are no easy fixes. Personally, go back to the red tape. I think if we could insulate our homes without so much red tape, that would be great. If we could put solar panels on our homes in a way that is good for the environment, that would be great as well. Those would be the sorts of things I think that would be legitimate for people in our position to say we could look at helping support. I don't know that we could do anything about mortgages because we are unfortunately at the mercy of the banks.
It's more about fairness across all. Not everyone has children, not everyone's a tenant. So where's the consistency across everyone is sort of where I was trying to come with it.
I hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Barbara.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey. It's when I had my first mortgage, it was 15%. So I was so thankful for mortgage relief, tax relief on that. Where then we had 10 years of it actually being zero. So yes, it's now creeping up. There's also we can look at stamp duty, but the mortgage relief that has now gone this year, which I think is wrong, but that came in 2020, and there was a lot of things wrong going back in 2020, which hurts the likes of the person who was taken on that mortgage for the first time. I also concur with my colleagues here, about solar panels, etc., so which I don't wish to repeat, but concur with them. But thank you for raising that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's time for somebody else to ask a question. We've got somebody down here in the front row. Anybody to go after that? Did I see a hand up over there? No? Okay, we'll go to you afterwards.
Thank you. My name's Nick LeBray. I live in St Clement. So over the past hour and a bit, there's only been one mention from any of the panellists about the financial services industry, notwithstanding that it accounts for about 45% of the economy, and those people that work in that industry account for the majority of the tax take of the island. And yet, my sense, even with those figures, is that many islanders, often encouraged, unfortunately, by some politicians, think of the finance industry as the bad guys. And I'm worried about this growing division. I would like to know how the candidates propose to encourage a more unified island where everyone can celebrate the great successes of this island, including the huge success of the financial services industry.
So Alex Curtis will answer this first.
It's interesting because, as I said, I never thought I'd be the person saying, actually, we want a financial services industry. But you come to realise that we are so lucky to be where we are because we've had an industry that's kept us out of debt and has kept, talent and provided a lot of jobs on the island. How do we make the island positive about all the economies and financial services? It's a really tricky cultural one. It's like many of the issues we're talking about. They're cultural and they're hard and they need everyone, and 49 states members will not change that. It takes, in this case, an island to solve that, to work together on that. What we do need to do is make sure that the impacts of the financial services industry, and there are impacts, it has inflated housing, it has caused other knock-on effects. We need to make sure that we are fairly addressing the balance that the financial service industry causes, because I think the friction comes from some of that, but ultimately it is our main source of income right now, and we all want to see a sustainable island financially long into the future. Financial services is playing a part in that, 100%. It is the main part at the moment.
Thank you. Noah.
Thanks so much for the question. Of course, financial services is an exceptional force on this island and something that does need to be nurtured and looked after and not taken for granted. When I think about what finance has done for me, I think to my friends who've been given great jobs in finance. There's so many people who've become trained accountants, who've become trained within huge international firms, and now traveling the world working with something that they love. And that is something that should be advertised. It should be a pathway that people should be taking. We've got great jobs that can be lined up, qualifications that can be done through finance. The other one that is an emerging field, and I've spoken to a couple of people who work in that sector, is the green finance industry. We've got an opportunity to be people leading the way as an island on that. And if we can encourage that, and if we can make people qualified in that field, and again, nurturing the finance industry is exceptionally important because it does so much for this island.
Karen.
Thank you. I think this is a really, really important question because having sat on the Economic and International Affairs Committee and looked at the competitiveness programme, what I understand is if we do not protect and value our finance industry, we are going to be in dire straits. And 60% of public sector funding comes from the finance industry. And the question is, what would we do if the finance industry decided to up sticks and go tomorrow? So there is an absolute need to develop a very clear relationship between the public and the private sector. I recall the fiscal policy panel talked about the need for the public sector to rein in some of its expenditure. That is not the finance sector telling us how to run our services. That's the finance sector saying, you know, we've got a lot of money that is being spent on here and we need to see better productivity and better quality. So I think it's really important that we protect it, and I certainly will be supporting any effort to do that.
Lindsay.
Thank you. Well, I worked in the finance industry. I worked in the futures market in London wearing stripy jackets and waving my hands around for 15 years. And then I came here and worked as a foreign exchange dealer. I said in the same room 8 years ago that the finance industry has to be backed and has to be supported as much as the island can. And the reason I gave is that if you lose your main industry, you're in big, big trouble. And anybody who doubts that needs to go and look at places like South Wales, where they lost the coal industry, or Middlesbrough, where they lost the chemical industry, to see the wreckage it can make of a community. So we need to support it as much as we can. Thank you.
Joanne.
Thank you. I agree. We have to support the finance industry. It is, you know, the backbone of our economy. So not to do it would be ridiculous. But supporting the finance industry does mean we need an ecosystem, because financiers very seldom come in isolation to our island. They bring their families, you know, and they all have needs. So we need to have great schools, we need to have great restaurants. They very often have colleagues that need to be put up in hotels. So I think if we're going to look after the finance industry, it's great for the island, because we need to look after the whole ecosystem. You cannot say, look after finance. What does that involve? Well, that involves the humans. At the end of the day, it's the humans. What do the humans need? They need somewhere to eat. They need somewhere to sleep. They need somewhere for their children to have fun, green spaces, high-stress jobs. Oh, we've got we've got so much to offer. Finance industry, high stress by the ocean, with these walks, with these beaches. I mean, it's a dream situation. We can look after them in lots of ways. I just think with the creativity and the innovation and the people on this island, we can do it. We just need to get behind it.
Barbara.
Nick, thank you very much for that question. I think we should be celebrating our finance here in Jersey, because the results we got, forgive me if I'm wrong, was it the Moneyval assessment that we had? And we came out really, really well. And that's the information that we should be shouting from the rooftops about how good this finance service is. And as I said before, we have to project it globally I know that we have Jersey Finance. We have an office in the United States and in different areas of the world who are promoting our finance industry about its stability and what it does. And it has a very good reputation and name. I don't hear any badness about our Jersey Finance at all. But maybe I'm just being, but all I hear is good news. But thank you for your question, Nick. Thank you.
Mick.
Well, I stand firmly with Reform Jersey in supporting the finance industry in Jersey. As has been mentioned, it's absolutely essential that they have support from government. I completely agree with that. But your question was more about a unified Ireland with the finance industry. And I think what we're talking about here is a much more human nature type of question, where people who are struggling to make ends meet watch and hear about our financial brothers in financial work who have plenty of money and they're driving big cars and affording big houses. And I think there's an envy that is difficult to get across. Perhaps in order to do that, we should invite the industry to be more openly and actively supportive of our charities and community efforts, so that they are seen to be giving a little more back. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is the gentleman there with the brown jumper.
Tom Bunting, a voter in St Clement. Probably a very easy question. Given the number of the electors and the fact that there are other routes, is it, I'd like your views, possibly a yes and no might do, on the fact that the constables de facto are members of the states?
So, Noah is first with this one. He'll need the mic.
Thank you very much, Tom. The constable plays a really, really important role in this parish, and I don't want to take away from that. And there was, of course, a referendum on the role of the constable in the State Assembly as well, as a dual role. I think in order to have a fair electoral system, you need seats that make sense, and having the constables take away from the overall democratic mandate of each of the deputy constituencies. And additionally, trying to explain that role of having a three-tier system to new voters, I found that on the candidate fair was particularly difficult. At the moment, as it stands, I think there's a lot of constables do a lot of good work, especially in scrutiny panels, and I don't want to take that away from them, but my principle being is, as a democracy, there should be fair elections, there should be elections with equal-sized constituencies, and for that reason, I am sceptical about the role of the constable in states.
Karen.
Thank you. I actually support the constables staying in the Assembly, Tom. And the reason for that is because they play a vital role in almost adjudicating some of the issues in the Assembly, where I think the experience of managing a parish administration and understanding the context of parish life is really important. I think we can get really lofty in the Assembly sometimes because we forget about, why we're there. Some of us forget why we're there. And I think one of the things that the constables do is they bring that real world parish focus to the debates, and they also add value to some of the issues that we face as an assembly in relation to participating, as Noah said, on other parish committees. I mean, I was very lucky to have the advice and expertise of one of the constables when we were actually undertaking a cash review and also undertaking a review of the ferry as well. So for me, they add value, and I wouldn't want to change that.
Lindsay.
I've actually changed horses on this. When I went into the States, I wasn't sure they should be, but when we re-changed all the boundaries and some people lost their deputy, I think it was vitally important to keep the constables in there, because that meant that every parish did have a voice within the chamber. And I think that's a very, very important thing to happen. What I would like to see is the constables better used, because often scrutiny is misused by the states if you get the wrong person as chair. Not always, but can be. And I'd like to see all the chairs of the scrutiny panels the constables, because I think they tend to have slightly more fair-minded and unbiased view than some of the other members.
Joanne.
It's easy for me. I'm not experienced enough to have the point of view that Karen can offer us and that Lindsay can offer us. I feel like the constable is invaluable and brings something very special to the state, so I'm all for it.
Barbara.
I'm all for the constable's position in the state. They bring valuable experience and knowledge to the State's Assembly. They're all running their own businesses. For me, they are part of our heritage, and I would not like to see the Conitarbs lose that position within the State's Chamber. I think it'll be a sad day if that ever happened. Thank you.
Mick.
I think this is a great question from a reform member, because it brings to the fore just how different we can think about these things within a single party. As having worked for 15 years as a scrutiny officer, I worked with deputies and constables for many, many years. And the constables most definitely bring a very important and very different aspect to many conversations, because they have nothing but the parish at their heart. And deputies have political alliances, all different sorts of political influences to consider. So I actually believe that the constables should stay in the States and that they have an incredibly important role.
Alex.
Thank you. And from working with the Conitarbs, especially on the planning committee, which is mostly made of them, they do bring their own views, especially a deep understanding of parishes, although never voting on themselves. What I would say is, going further than keeping them in the state, I think they are good to be in the state. I accept the inequity in the voting, but sometimes theory versus practice has to rule. And I think right now the Conitarbs deliver more good in the Assembly than actually a fairer system. And I would say I preferred the fairer system that we had last time, but I would not support any changes in the next 4 years, because what we have to do is stop making changes in the Assembly about how that runs and focus on running the island. And so much as we might want to make many changes, the next 4 years should be about stability of who's in there and not trying to change the rules every time.
Thank you. Now, anybody else with some questions? Oh, we've got two people. If we go to that gentleman first, and who was the second one? The other person over here? We go back there afterwards.
John Krill, I live in St Clement. A very controversial one. Your views on assisted dying, please.
That was a nice succinct question. So we go to Karen Wilson first.
Thank you, John. I think you may already know my views, having rejected any move to introduce assisted dying in the island. And I do that not because I don't believe in people exercising their choice at the end of their life, but because I actually believe that palliative care is the way to humanely look after people who are coming to the end of their life. And I was appalled when I became health minister about the lack of investment that had been made in palliative care services. I've put that right, and we've now got a piece of legislation that actually protects that investment forever in relation to palliative care services. So my concern is to make sure that people certainly are looked after well at the end of life, but I don't believe that a public health system should actually be funding an individual's choice to end their life.
Lindsay.
Yes, I mean, it's a highly emotive question. It splits people really right down the middle. Personally, I wasn't for it because I believe there can be huge opportunities for slippage and manipulation of what actually happens at the end there. I think we've seen it with abortion in the UK, which started off at a rate, and now it's right up to the time of birth, which is absolutely scandalous in my opinion. The other thing, as Karen alluded to, is that are we going to use having assisted dying as a way of reducing the money we're spending on palliative care? Are we going to say to people, well, if you want palliative care, you'll have to go private, in which case you've got two options, make do or have assisted dying? And people might say, well, that's not going to happen. But as people cut back on things, who knows what will happen? Okay, so I think we have to be very, very careful before we go down that route. And I am a big fan of palliative care, having got near to it, I suppose, when I had cancer, and you look at how well these things are done, it's brilliant.
Joanne.
Well, this is a subject that has raged on in my family. I have parents who are facing a tricky future, and for many years they have been, believe it or not, planning what's going to happen at the end of their life because they feel very passionately that they should have control. And I think that if we get the legislation around it right, because I agree there are very big risks, but having dealt with my parents and listening very carefully to their wishes and what they do and don't want happening, which is very difficult for a daughter to listen to, you have to respect the wishes of the person. And if that is a conversation that we start having now, which you can do if the legislation is done properly, then maybe we will be in a position for people to die with dignity, which is, I think, at the heart of what my parents certainly were thinking about. So as long as this, the legislation was right and the individual's rights were being respected, I'd have to say, having gone through nearly a decade of it with my parents, I think I'd have to be on the side of it, yeah.
Barbara.
I think many of you here probably know my views and that I do not support assisted dying, and especially in the format that has been agreed, because I think it's actually, some aspects of it is euthanasia, because about giving injections to people who have become unconscious or they lose capacity. Anyway, however, that will have to be decided by the Ministry of Justice in the UK, whether they support the Jersey draft law. So I think I've said it all, really, is that I do not support assisted dying. Thank you. Mick.
Well, I certainly support more investment in palliative care. There's no doubt about that. I think that is hugely important. But I also support assisted dying because I think that there are occasions when people deserve the right to choose how and when they should end their life, knowing that that is the outcome that's going to happen anyway. So I just believe that people should have that choice.
Alex.
As somebody who voted in this assembly, my record is public. I supported Route 1 in the assisted dying, and then I supported the final legislation. I was very happy to at least know that we were supporting palliative care and end-of-life care before that vote in 2026. And I was also really, disappointed to see the slippery slope come round the day or the week after we actually debated the main law. And my views were clear. A 12-month neurological and terminal diagnosis was the only path that I was willing to support, and I was not willing to support the other cases provided. And that's hard because we had people asking us for that, and my answer was no. But I did meet 3 weeks before our vote in 2024 parishioner who was terminally ill, and they wanted the choice. And I heard from so many others, and unfortunately they weren't actually still with us to hear the final vote in 2024, nor in 2026. And I heard the religious voices, and I, in my conscience, weighed it up, and I supported Route 1.
No.
Thank you, John. It is an exceptionally difficult issue, and therefore an exceptionally difficult question. I really struggle to think of people who are at the end of their lives terminally ill and in pain and suffering. And I really find it difficult to tell people they don't have the choice on how to proceed with their future at that point. It's been for a long time the will, I believe, of the Jersey people. It was something brought to a people's forum. It was something they wanted to bring forward. And for many, many years, the state's now been working towards a solution. I'm glad we have got and made progress on it. I do support people who are at the end of their lives and who are terminally ill to make decisions about themselves, and a concern I would have is if they went down a private route. I don't want someone suffering because they can't afford a way to privately end their lives. I think that would be horrific. So yeah, I think the choice should be on the patient. We can't take away from the success and the importance of palliative care, but for people who do want to make the option, they should have the choice.
Thank you. Now on to our next question. There was somebody over there who had their hand up. He's got his hand up now. Can we take the mic to him?
Peter Harrison again. Were any of you, to be invited or decide to take a ministerial or assistant ministerial position in the new states? Do you believe you have the capabilities to manage the chief executives and their immediate staff in each of the departments you'll be dealing with, or the department you'll be dealing with?
Thank you. Lindsay Ash will answer this first.
I was the Assistant Minister in Treasury and Home Affairs, and I have to say, when I was the Assistant Minister in Treasury, I was given a brief of the electricity, JEC, the JT, and during that time, I oversaw the sale of JT's IoT business for £200 million, and it was a pleasure to watch the board in action on that. So I really enjoyed it. As to whether I'd get on with the new CEO, I don't know, because I've never worked with him. He must be jolly good, because he's just awarded himself a £100,000 pay rise. But I would have to see once I hopefully got in there as to whether we were compatible.
Thank you, Lindsay. Joanne.
Thank you for your question. No, I definitely would not be. I would be very much just, if you were to choose me for one of your votes, I would most definitely just sit in the back, listen, look, learn, chair lead, hopefully the changes, vote for the things I know would work for St Clement's, but I would like to be focused on the parish, certainly, if I did get in. Thank you.
Barbara.
As Assistant Health Minister and being invited as Assistant Minister to sit on government, which has been an absolute eye-opener, I've not been slow in coming forward in actually challenging the Chief Minister and the rest of the government. And on many occasions, I have had to stand up and I have to go with my principles, and I've gone against the government. But it hasn't gone against me personally, but I have not been silenced, as it were, in being able to express my views, which were contra to the government. I've found that all the civil servants, all the the senior officers there, have actually been very hard-working and very open, and they've been actually a pleasure to work with. They go the extra mile to find your information, to make sure that when you're speaking and doing something, you are telling the truth. So, believe it or not, that they are very good.
Mick Robbins.
Yes, as a scrutiny officer for 15 years, I was doing the research, writing questions for ministers and writing reports for scrutiny panels. That took me into numerous chief officers' offices, and I spoke to numerous civil servants of all sorts of ranks in between. And I always found them extremely helpful. If you asked the right questions, you got the answers you needed. And in some cases, I was able to deal with these people in a way that gave me answers that brought the matter to a head fairly quickly. We had a Treasury Minister who came back to us an hour after we'd spoken to him and completely changed what he was about to do. And that was around 2008 or thereabouts, when there was they were injecting huge amounts of money into Jersey, and we worked very carefully on that, got some great answers. So yes, I'd be comfortable working with these people.
Alex.
Thank you, Peter. And I think in my opening speech, I said I had given pushback, and that actually delivered a change in direction to the civil service in regards to capital projects that would have spent more money than needed. But what I would say is I think I would be more effective at it if I had another stab, and I would be happy with the right government to work in the role of digital, which is typically an assistant chief minister. And I see that time is of the essence, and decisive decision-making is. And you often hear, oh, this is operational and this is political, and we now need politicians who push back and say operations can be politics. We need to run the civil service in the right way, and with the benefit of a year and a half in that side, 2.5 in scrutiny, I feel more equipped to do it this time and to be decisive in doing it.
Noah.
Thanks so much for your question. I won't be taking ministerial posts in the next government. I will 100% be focusing on the people of St Clement's and scrutinising the government on their behalf. There are interests to policy I've got a lot of interest in culture and tourism, and those are things I do want to work on. It won't be in a ministerial role, but yeah, 100% focus on St Clement's. I will be active in questions. I'll be active in submitting propositions, but yeah, I won't be taking a ministerial position. Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you. I think the question is a leadership question, and the first thing I'd like to tackle is it depends whether or not who the Chief Minister is, whether I want to work for them, and in some way that helps me to stay grounded. The thing is that I've held a number of leadership roles. I've been a Director of Nursing, a Managing Director, a Chief Executive, a Health Minister, so I have been used to holding people to account, and I'd just like to reiterate what Alex was talking about there. I think when you're actually in scrutiny and you've been able to challenge the Chief Executive on his plans for public spending and also the Chief Minister on the delivery around the Common Strategic Policy, it might be helpful to look at some of the recordings of those panels, because I feel as though I've been very challenging, and I've also generated some very important information for parishioners and islanders on some of the really key important topics. For example, the hospital review and also the ferry contract.
Thank you. Now, we've probably got time for another couple of questions, so have you got any burning issues? Somebody there? On this side? Where are the people with the mics? There's a lady there on the other side, but maybe somebody could pass the mic along.
My name is Rosemary, and I live in St Clement's. But I feel that Highlands is sort of the Cinderella of education. And I'd like to see what vision you would have for Highlands, for the young people coming through. It's not just the generation in teenage years, it's the young ones, the little ones, that would benefit from that sort of level upwards. Because we need skilled people. We need to help people in the building to build our island, to make it grow. So what would your vision be?
Okay, so Joanne, it's you first this time.
Rosemary, thank you. I think I've spoken a lot on this tonight. I care very much about our future generations. I don't per se, and I don't want to lie to you and say I've got a vision. I would go to the educators now. I would go to the children. We have got incredibly talent. Even in our own parish, we've got incredible educators and teachers who have got visions. They are embedded in our education system right now, and they are crying out for opportunities to help build the confidence and the resilience of these young people, and to share with them the beauty of these. And I was vocationally trained, just for full transparency. I went through the vocational system. I got 2 degrees doing vocational qualifications, and I love it. It's been deeply fulfilling. I love working with people. AI will not take that away from us. We will still need plumbers, because we will still need carpenters. So I think they are brilliant professions. We will need carers, we will need nurses. So I'm fully supportive, but I would speak and consult with the educators, because I think they're the best informed for a vision.
Barbara.
Highlands actually is a very exciting place. You're doing your degrees there. I don't know, they've opened up the restaurant. I don't know whether any of you have been up there and had meals. It's fantastic. You know, and so they can then be working in our hospitality area. But we've got to listen to what those young people want. Exactly what my colleague said. Tell us what you want. It's a fantastic site. I wouldn't want to see it move. Further develop, yes, but I think it's well placed. And obviously we want to do more vocational and apprenticeship courses, but in league with schools as well, because there's facilities in schools that we could utilise in the evenings. There's a lot of halls and rooms in our schools that are just empty. They're not being utilised. So why build more when you've already got them?
Mick.
Well, I mentioned a little earlier about the university side, so I'm not going to repeat myself there. But a few years ago now, I was up there for scrutiny purposes, and I had a walk around, and there were people building walls and doing carpentry and metalwork, all sorts of really interesting stuff that our youngsters were gaining skills from. And I was told at that time that there was a lot of connection or they were trying to improve the connection between Highlands and the local industries that they were supporting. And I think that is where we need to go. We need to encourage industries to work with Highlands to increase the skills to make people more relevant for the modern world of work. And I think that the people I'm talking about here are often forgotten. We talk about people coming back or being at university or people having their... I need to stop.
Alex.
Right, well, Highlands is many things. It's University College Jersey, it's 16 plus, it's professional development, it's lifestyle things. And I won't have the vision for Highlands, but if I could focus on one area, it would be continual development of other vocational things. Now, in our distillery, we've now trained in Jersey or taught people, over 1,000 people, how to distill. And what I've learned is there is an untapped need or desire for people of all ages to learn. So people really want to learn how to do things, learn the craft of things, and I would really suggest that actually Highlands is, as a visionary place, you know, there's gyoza making up there, which might sound, you know, bizarre, but actually part of the vision should be Highlands is a place to learn at any stage in life and can learn all sorts of things. So that's what I'd like to contribute to this conversation right now.
Noah.
Thanks so much for the question. Highlands College is a really important cornerstone of the community. It's done so much work. It's helped people I know get onto degree courses in the UK. It's helped them improve their professional lives and gain professional qualifications. I think at the moment it is limited on what it can do. I think we need more ambition for Highlands, or new ambition for what it can offer, especially at degree courses. We won't be able to function as a UK university, but if we can treat people, especially in areas like health and social care, where people can go straight from Highlands into the workplace and be doing really exceptional work, that's a great thing. And part-time courses, when I talk about lifelong learning, it's difficult for people to give up their jobs and go straight back into education. But if we can have courses that people can attend in the evening and gain a meaningful qualification, or even just gain an experience that they enjoy, I think that'd be brilliant for the community and would do a lot of good work.
Karen.
Thank you, Rosemary, for your question. I don't think I can add an awful lot to what's already been said. What I do know is that in terms of educational attainment in our young children in the parish, when we compare performance against other parishes, we are at amber. And what that means is that we need to be making sure that the attainment levels in our local schools are actually improving so that we can actually help people access some of the courses and some of the developments that are actually available at Highlands. And I know people have talked about apprenticeships and that sort of thing. I think the other thing that's really important is that I would like a review of Highlands, to be quite honest with you. I think it's trying to be a jack of all trade, and I think we might get more value out of it if we're really clear about what its real offer could be and how we invest in a whole new educational reform programme that will actually put it really clearly on the map in terms of what it offers people.
Lindsay.
Thank you. Interestingly, Highlands have just appointed a new head, so it'll be quite interesting to see what his vision is of Highlands rather than mine. I can tell you what the vision was back in 2022, or it was with some people, and I thought it was quite an exciting vision, was that with the hospital moving to Overdale, that would leave a wonderful granite facade there that would await a wonderful college of higher education come university. It would have also put these young people in the middle of St Helier, so when they finish work, they can go and work in some of the outlets there and provide extra staffing levels for the high street that we're badly needing. So it would have been a win-win situation. Unfortunately, that wasn't to be, but that was my vision, and I'll have to come up with a new one.
Thank you very much for all the answers. Now, unless anybody's got a really burning question, we've got a couple of minutes before the end, but you've already had a question. Are you happy to take one more question since that person's there with his hand up and he hasn't asked one? Okay. And this will be the last one.
Just a quick one. Are any of the candidates not resident in St Clement? Paul Tinley. I am.
Barbara, over to you.
I've lived in St Clement's for the past 36 years. Yes.
Next, Mick.
I grew up in St Clement's, getting very muddy on the the marsh where they built the flats, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time here growing up. I moved away where I brought up a family in the other side of the island. I won't mention which parish. And I'm back here now, living very happily in the parish.
Alex.
I am resident in St Helier. I grew up in the parish for decades. It is a parish I identify with, and after 4 years of serving and working with the parish, it is the one I feel closest to. And so that is it. It's all published, and I feel incredibly proud to represent St Clement for the last 4 years and see it as my parish.
Noah.
Thanks so much for the question. I've now lived the majority of my life in St Clement's, and it's always been the same home just up the road in La Clos-de-Monique. Thank you.
Karen.
Yes, Paul, I've lived here for 6 years and I live along the line. Thank you.
Lindsay.
Thank you. I'm pleased to say I've lived here for 25 years since moving from London, and I've loved it. Thank you.
Joanne.
Yes, I also live in St Clement's, literally around the corner. Hop, skip and a jump, and I'm back at the parish hall.
Thank you. Well, that was a quick one. Thank you for all your questions, and thank you to the candidates for their answers, and thanks to the parish hall staff who've been walking around with mics and setting things up, the tech team over there at the back, and everyone else who's helped organise tonight's event. If you'd like to get in touch with any of the election candidates here, you can find their contact details on the Vote.je website and in the manifesto booklets, which have started to be delivered to homes. I'm not sure if they've got to St Clement yet, but they've made it to St Mary. Yeah, somebody's brought hers with her. If you applied for a postal vote, your ballot papers need to be with the judicial greffe by 12 noon on the Sunday the 7th of June. And you can vote early at St Paul's Centre, if that suits you, in St Helier, between the 26th of May and the 1st of June. On election day, polling stations are open from 8 till 8, and remember to take photo ID with you. And Karen's got a few words to say.
Thank you, Kathy. Just about on behalf of the candidates, we'd like to say a tremendous thank you to all of you for coming along this evening and for putting your questions to us and for taking the time out of your own leisure time. We're truly grateful, and we hope that we've made it worthwhile for you. Thank you very much.